I have a couple of lists I want to read to you guys to get this podcast started. The first list is Starbucks, Google, Subway, Shopify, Under Armour, Chipotle, and Dyson. Now here's a second list I want to read off to you. Apple, General Motors, Ally Financial, which is known in the past as GMAC, Chrysler, Marvel Entertainment, Six Flags, and if you don't know, that's theme parks, Texaco, Sbarro. Those two lists are some pretty big companies, and I'm going to tell you what the companies on each of those lists have in common. Welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I am a food truck business coach, author of 5 food truck vending books, including Food Truck 101 and Food Truck 201. This podcast is all about helping you start and grow your food truck business. Table Needs invites you to dive into a candid conversation with Christian and Tracy, co-owners of Restless Coffee, about their inaugural year in the food truck industry. Gain valuable insight on menu creation, top-notch customer service, community building, and the dynamics of working with your spouse. Curious about the journey? Click the link in the episode description to watch the video for free. So let's start with the list containing Dyson, Chipotle, Under Armour, Shopify, Subway, Google, and Starbucks. Each one of those companies started out by borrowing money to get started. In some cases, the owners had a little bit of money that they pulled together to start the companies, and then found out in order for them to grow and become a full-fledged, legitimate big company, they had to borrow money. Others of them had zero money to start with and had to borrow money to even get started. And again, that list is Starbucks. The original founders pulled their money together, and they were doing a coffee bean business. Then when Howard Schultz came on board, they started selling teas and coffees, and it started becoming what you see today. But the original founders had to borrow money. Google, the two dudes that started Google had to borrow money. They didn't have enough capital to do anything. Their very first search engine was called Backrub, and it didn't get any kind of traction until they got funding that helped them to grow. They had investors, they borrowed money. Subway, it's considered one of the most renowned franchises in the world. It's got 44,000 locations. The founder, Fred DeLuca, he asked for $1,000 from a family friend to get his first restaurant started. DeLuca is also one of the people that says he knew nothing about sandwiches until he started. Shopify, the person that started Shopify, had to borrow money to be able to expand Shopify to make it work. Chipotle, since it's a food business, and we talk about food all the time, Chipotle's founder, Steve Ells, he borrowed $85,000 from his father. And according to the reports, his father joked that his son would have to sell over 100 burritos a day to make profit. Well, let's see what they're doing nowadays. The valuation of Chipotle is over $1 billion. Having borrowed money does not set you up for failure. Money is a tool. Borrowing money, getting loans, financing, all tools. It's just a matter of how you use those tools. If you were given a chainsaw and said, here, go cut down some trees, unless you've been trained on how to use that chainsaw, you could likely hurt yourself or hurt somebody else. Financing is the same way. Financing in and of itself is not a bad thing. How it's handled by the people that get financing is when it becomes a good thing or it becomes a bad thing. I listed off several companies that are huge that started out by financing, by getting someone else to foot the bill for the money they started with. Now let's talk about the other list, because there's a whole bunch of people that want to borrow money, and when they post on our Facebook group, they'll get attacked. And of course, I kick out the attackers because I don't allow people to attack folks in my Facebook group, but still the opinion's out there. You go look at other Facebook groups and the attacks remain. Someone says, hey, I want to finance, and there will be post after post after post that says, don't do it, don't go into debt. When someone tells you not to go into debt, they don't understand how to use the tools of business. All debt is, all financing is, it is a tool, and you got to learn how to use it. Now, on this other list, we're going to talk about another tool that people don't like, but it is a tool. One of the consequences that people will say when you finance is you have so much debt, and you've got to make those payments, and you'll lose your business, and you'll never, ever get out of debt. Okay, so the list that I'm going to read off is companies that filed bankruptcy. They were technically failing. They filed bankruptcy, and they're still around today. Apple. They were on the verge of going out of business in 1997. And then amazingly, their arch rival swooped in with a $150 million investment and saved the company. But Apple was on the verge of going out of business. General Motors. They were once the largest auto manufacturer in the world, and they filed for bankruptcy. And they're still around today. Ally Financial, which used to be called GMAC, which is the financing arm of General Motors. If you went to buy a car back in the day, that's who financed if you bought a General Motors brand car. They filed for bankruptcy. Still around today. Chrysler Motors filed for bankruptcy. They're still around today. Marvel Entertainment. Before Spider-Man and the Avengers and all the movies that took off and made billions, they were near bankruptcy in 1996. Today, the company is worth billions, but they were almost out of business. They had to file for bankruptcy. Six Flags, which is a theme park corporation, they have 27 theme parks and water parks around North America. They declared bankruptcy because they had $2.7 billion in debt. Bankruptcy allows you to be reorganized as a company and keep the company operational so that the people that you owe money to can get something. Because if you go out of business, they get nothing. Bankruptcy is just a tool. Texaco, 1984, they owed billions, filed bankruptcy. Sbarro, fast food chain selling pizza in shopping malls. They've gone through bankruptcy twice. Once in 2011, once in 2014. The company reemerged with the help of other folks that saw value in what they've created and helped bail the company out, but they went through bankruptcy. They are still around today. They have 630 units. Bankruptcy is a tool. It's not something to be afraid of. There are many, many other examples of companies that have filed for bankruptcy, come out of the bankruptcy stronger because the debt load's been reduced and they're able to continue operations. So when you think about starting your business and you don't have an extra $100,000 laying around, so you can buy the truck, you can buy the inventory, you can buy the smallwares you're going to need, you can buy all the random equipment that you're going to need that won't be provided by the food truck builder. So you can get that initial inventory, you can get the insurance started, you can get all the deposits and different kind of things you're going to need to put down. So if you don't have that kind of money laying around, you're going to have to either raise it or finance it. Now understand, financing in our world can mean a couple of different things. You can finance just the vehicle itself, which means a lien is put against that vehicle. You don't pay the loan off and they'll come repossess the vehicle. But if you get a personal loan or even a business loan that just gives you money, you buy the vehicle, you can continue to operate even if you have to file bankruptcy because you still own the vehicle. What you owe is a bunch of money to a bank. So don't be afraid to finance. Don't be gullible and fall for the people say, don't go into debt. They don't understand how to build a business. They're afraid of debt. Debt is just a fixed expense. I talk about break-even points all the time. You have two kinds of expenses. You have variable expenses, ones that only go up when you're open for business. Then you have a fixed expense. It has to be paid whether you're open or closed. So a loan payment is just a fixed expense. It's no different than any other expense you have to pay that's a fixed expense. Your insurance, that's a fixed expense. You got to pay it. You just got to learn money management. You got to learn how to use the tools of the trade. And I'm not talking about the oven and the chef's knives. I'm talking about business tools. Financing is not a negative thing. It's also not a positive thing. So let's go through some of the pluses and minuses, the pros and cons of financing. The pros are access to capital, which means you can spend that money on more than just financing the food truck. Now we're talking about getting a business loan. It is possible to get those. It's not easy, but it is possible. Growth and expansion. You may be open 2 or 3 years and want a second truck, but you need more money to get that second truck. So you can use financing to grow your business. You also are sharing the risk. When somebody invests in your business and gives you money to grow the business, they're taking some of the risk too. Because if you don't succeed, you'll be able to, number one, file bankruptcy and have part of that debt cut, if not all of it. So they're sharing the risk. You also will end up with some expertise and guidance, especially if you use venture capitalists or angel investors. They can help you to learn the things about handling money you don't already know. There are tax benefits to financing. Talk to an accountant. Talk to a tax attorney. Learn what those benefits are. Put them to work for you. Now, there are some negatives. You will have debt. You will have interest payments. If you borrow $100,000 and it's on a very high interest rate, you're paying back way more than $100,000, but you are able to be in business. You're going to lose a little bit of control if you use some type of equity investment. They may want a portion of your business. Of course, they're sharing the risk. If the business fails, they have a portion of nothing, but you may lose control. There's going to be costs and fees associated with loans. There's going to be repayment pressure, and this is the one that drives people crazy. Once you take out a loan, they're going to tell you you have 45 days, you have 60 days, and the payments start. And the payments have to come out the 1st or the 15th or whenever they select for you to make your payment. That is always a hard deadline. But you know what? It's just basically a tunnel with a whole bunch of lights in it. Eventually, you come out of the tunnel and you don't owe anybody anything. You no longer have pressure to make those payments, but you have a business. If you can't handle the pressure of knowing every 15th of the month you've got to make a $2,000 loan payment, then you shouldn't get one. That doesn't make it bad for anybody else. It just means you shouldn't get it. And of course, there's always the risk of failure. But there's a risk of failure whether you're using your money or you're using somebody else's money. So the bottom line is, should you finance your small business? It's not a yes or no question. The answer is tailored to what you need and what you're capable of doing. It's not an automatic no, and it shouldn't be. Thank you so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding all the information helpful to your food truck business, please become a monthly supporter of the podcast. Just hit the support button or follow the link in the description. Every little bit does help keep us going. Join our Facebook group. It's called Food Truck Training. We have a whole bunch of awesome members at all different levels, from brand new beginners to decades-old veterans. They've all got your back when it comes to helping you with your food truck. And again, thank you for listening. Come back tomorrow because I got plenty more to say when it comes to helping you and your food truck business grow.